Yo, what's up, guys? Why not be reckless, aka why not be caster, one of the HCS commentators, analysts, and grassroots content creators, and we have another HCS recap. We're gonna recap all the craziness that's went down over the last week or so, whether it comes to roster announcements or even scrim series. We're gonna break it all down for you. So without further ado, let's jump right into it. And we're going to start off with some of these teams being officially official, such as FaZe bringing on Snakebite and Lucid. It is official here for the FaZe roster. I mean, we knew about it for quite some time, let's be honest, between the rumors and even the Twitter beef coming out of the players themselves. We already knew that both Snakebite and Lucid would be joining FaZe, and excited to see that original Optic roster trio coming together, and then Snakebite coming in as well to complement them so well. And I think FaZe have looked amazing since. I said that SSG and FaZe move were going to work out really well for both rosters, and I really believe that. I think FaZe have looked extremely good right out of the gate. Meanwhile, we'll talk a little bit more about Space Station Gaming, who officially signed Falcated and Suppressed. Both teams using this official line. Falcated and Suppressed joining both Stellar and Eco. And man, SSG, one of my favorite organizations. The players themselves wanted to speed up their gameplay, and I think Suppressed and Falcated are going to be able to do literally just that. The question now becomes, what is going to be that winning formula? What playstyle complements which team better? Because SSG and FaZe are going to be that rivalry that we're all going to keep our eyes on literally all year long. We'll see what Space Station Gaming been able to do in scrims, and even the same for FaZe, and kind of see who's won that trade at least off the rip, while also Complexity, who have been so surprising, like right out of the rip from their open series to their scrims. Complexity have been super duper official. They've been amazing. Bringing on YNOT and K-Nick to join Cherished and Mental has worked out so well here for Complexity. They've been fantastic, a huge signing. They're officially official as well. Meanwhile, one of the players that they dropped in Spartan, he tweeted out an announcement, or I guess I should say a contract signing, and although we don't know exactly where he's officially official to, we do know that he is signed to an organization, and wonder who that's going to be. My guess was Omit. That Omit roster, that Omit team really wants to be in Halo. They sported or they funded a team going into Dallas, and although that team isn't together anymore, something tells me that they still want to stay within Halo, and they're going to be a huge presence. So I have a really good idea that Spartan will be on that Omit roster. I think even APG kind of hinted at it as well on one of his streams, but only time will tell who's officially official. Meanwhile, we'll move over to the scrim results and find out how these teams have actually looked since coming together, and kind of what we've talked about with the whole SSG and FaZe. You know, SSG losing out 7 out of 10 games to that Complexity roster. Complexity coming together have looked absolutely incredible right off the rip, and even looking that damn good against the newly signed Space Station Gaming roster, where FaZe come out and with the 15-1 against this new Spartan the Dog roster, which I say new, but you bring Sparty, Huss, and Breaking Shot back together, and then ultimately Lethal reuniting with Spartan from back in the Sentinels days, and you have 3 Forza Complexity plus Lethal, only able to take 1 game off of FaZe, but this new FaZe roster have looked really good. And just looking at those two right off the rip, you might want to say that FaZe won the initial trade, but let's keep going on and see how things have looked from there. Envy still looking very good in scrims. Since the moment that Envy ultimately came together, they really have been that team. And although Complexity were able to take 6 out of 17 against them, which is still good for Complexity, Envy do come out with the dominant win. Team Nemesis looking also very dominant against Zero Tenacity. Remember, this is probably fresh off of Zero Tenacity beating them in that EU Open Series. Team Nemesis getting their revenge in a big way, taking 11 of 12. Complexity 13-0 over 10 wide. Zero Tenacity with the 9-3 over ascending baseline. Surprised to see these international scrims, but 1-1 Zero Tenacity looked extremely good on. Optic versus FaZe, all eyes were on this series, and Optical Gaming with the 10 out of 13 over this FaZe roster. Although FaZe were able to keep it close in many of the matches, Optic still showing why they're the best team in the league, where FaZe 3 out of 13 ain't bad, but for a team that you know wants to win tournaments, they're going to want to perform a lot better against Optic when it comes to these scrims. Moving forward to SSG. Beating Ether, yes, but also allowing Ether to take 7 games off of them out of 17. That to me almost seems like a win in favor of Ether. Once again, SSG struggling a bit in the early scrims. It took only 3 out of 10 against Complexity. You allow Ether Gaming to take 7 off of you, which, yes, Ether Gaming is a fantastic team. Yes, they probably should have made it out of open bracket in Dallas, which, by the way, they did not. But still, when you're talking about SSG, you're talking about FaZe, you're talking about teams that should be in the top 4 right now, and ultimately they should be stomping the teams like Ether Gaming, and I'll even say Complexity in the same breath as that. You want to see Space Station Gaming stomping and looking dominant in those series, and so far it has not looked like that for Space Station Gaming. Meanwhile, Complexity with the 18-2 over Redemption. Wow. 18-2 in favor of Complexity. I mean, they dropped Spartan, they dropped Huss and Breaking Shot, the Complexity as well. And you know that Redemption wanted to get some redemption on Complexity. They would not find it in this scrim, but what they will find is valuable film to probably go over in VOD to try to figure out what they can do to take that next step, because Redemption are an extremely good roster that we want to see more of. Team Nemesis once again stomping Zero Tenacity 13-1. Shopify Rebellion doing the same to Envy. We keep talking about how great Envy is, but Shopify Rebellion and Optic are just in a tier of their own right now, it seems. And it seems like FaZe might be knocking on the door. Meanwhile, SSG, who should be knocking on said door, still starting off slow. They're probably going to want to hit the VODs. 10-6 in favor of SSG over Redemption. I mean, still a win in favor of SSG, which you want to see. But again, I feel like against the Redemptions and even against the Ether Gamings, you want to see more. Like, if it's a 16-game series, you want to see 13 threes, you want to see 14 twos, the same level of dominance, or at least a similar level of dominance that we would see out of a Shopify Rebellion or Envy. We kind of want to see that at SSG. Dead Inside 7-6 over ascending baseline. Very good for Dark Inside, excuse me. Kid Nasty, Looney, Lido, and Morgan. So we had Sylvanic, who ended up retiring a bit, but now you have a slightly new roster coming in and looking very good against also a very good ascending baseline. Super CC and Suspector joining the Twins is huge for ascending baseline, and probably one of their best to make it out of open bracket would be with that roster right there, and eventually Complexity pulling off a 12-2 routing, for lack of a better term. What is a rout? I'm pretty sure I heard that once before. Anyways, 12-2 in favor of Optic over Complexity. Very good performance out of them. And again, this is kind of what we talked about. Like, you know, when we see SSG versus Complexity, we see Complexity beating them 7-3. When we see a team like Optic versus Complexity, we see a 12-2. Like we want to see similar performances against the teams like Complexity and even Ether Gamings that we ultimately would see with like an Optic or a Shopify Blend. Even if not exactly the same, at least something similar. And so far, we haven't exactly seen that with Shopify Blend. In fact, we saw Complexity even pull off a win against them and them seemingly struggling against Ether Gaming and Redemption. Now, it is just Scrim, so it's like, take it with a grain of salt. Let's see exactly how this looks, maybe in like an open series tournament format, and then obviously when we get to LAN, that's when we find out who's the real deal and ultimately who's not. But we still got to get there, and on the road to SLC, it seems bumpy for many of these teams, and I can't wait to get there. Ladies and gentlemen, that is your HCS recap. If you like this type of content, don't forget to like, subscribe, comment down below, interact with the video in some way, shape, or form, so this way the algorithm pushes it out to more people who might enjoy this type of content. And until next time, I'll catch you later. Deuces.